Hello and welcome back to Analysis, where we've been discussing the perilous conditions faced by journalists in Pakistan. In this half, we'll be discussing what the future holds for journalism and freedom of the press in the country. My guests from the first half remain with me, but first let's hear from Amnesty International's Deputy Director for South Asia, David Griffiths, about his organization's recent report on journalism in Pakistan.
Well, journalists are under attack from all sides in Pakistan, as Amnesty International's recent report has detailed. In our report, we look at threats to journalists from a wide range of different actors, both state and non-state. And 34 journalists have been killed as a result, direct result of their work. Since democratic government was restored back in 2008. So this is a serious ongoing problem. If I could perhaps highlight the case of Malik Mumtaz, he was shot dead in a drive-by shooting back in February 2013, about a year ago. The local villagers also found an unexploded bomb under his car. So someone had gone to quite some lengths to kill him. Now, he, like many journalists, was working in a sensitive environment. He was in North Waziristan, where, of course, both the army and the Taliban are very active, both seeking to control as much as they could the media discourse about them. And so journalists like that have to tread a very fine line between not offending opposing groups for fear of their life. And that is the case for many journalists in Pakistan today. Justice is the key to prevention in the future and for the reversal of this terrible trend. Now, the Pakistan government has made some promising statements, including a promise that it will establish a federal and provincial level public prosecutor to investigate specifically attacks on journalists. So we're calling on the government of Pakistan to come good on that promise, to ensure that the public prosecutors are effective and are able to do their job, and that the perpetrators of attacks against journalists are brought to justice.
Come to you. I mean, obviously, if you're a journalist working in one of these conflict areas like Baluchistan or the northwest frontier areas and so on, it's a war going on there, and you're likely to be hit by anybody, and there's not much the government can do about that. But I mean, I'm interested in the sort of places where you aren't dealing with the Taliban, as it were. Do you feel afraid? I mean, do you feel that you have to be careful what you write? In fact, that you have to apply some self-censorship?
I think, yes, you do, but it depends on what topics you're covering. Like, if you're criticizing the civilian government, or compared with that, if you're talking about issues like Balochistan, where you have missing persons, I mean, at the moment, the figures are, according to some figures, it's close to 20,000 people who are missing, Baloch people who are missing, who are believed to be, disappeared by the agencies. And so Hamid Mir, who was
disappeared by government agencies?
Yes, intelligence agencies, ISI and others. So, and these are accusations, but it was Hamid Mir recently on his show before he was attacked. He invited one of the activists, Mama Qadir, and some women and children whose loved ones had been disappeared. And that was seen as, actually, if you watch that episode, he says that some people said something like, some people would consider me a traitor for highlighting these human rights violations of these people. And then, so some people are saying that because of that program, or that raising those kinds of issues is what might have got him targeted. Others are saying that it could be because he was saying that, if he's attacked, the ISI head is to be blamed. A third party might have taken advantage of that. And so at the moment, it's just speculation. And you would have to wait for some kind of concrete investigation to pinpoint. But to your question about, sensitive issues, or like talking about, military intelligence work, criticizing the Taliban, for example, in Waziristan, those areas, if you're a journalist working over there, then it's very difficult because you have to not make the military angry. You don't, and at the same time, you have to not get on the wrong side of the Taliban, because otherwise it can land you in
Well,
trouble.
why shouldn't you make the military angry if they're doing wrong things, if they're missing people and they're executions of people who are considered to be possibly terrorists or Taliban or something? Surely the military needs to be criticized, doesn't it?
Yes.
By journalists.
Yes, there are many people who are criticizing military on this issue. If you see in last 5 years, this issue have been highlighted by many journalists. There are many respectable journalists in Pakistan who are writing on this issue or doing programs on this issue. But if you see, there are, again, I will say there is no controlling authority in Pakistan who will draw a red line like Ofcom. Everyone have his own say. Everyone say what he what he thought. If you see, there were allegations against Hamid Mir as well in the past that he works for establishment. If you see the Osama bin Laden interview, there are many people in Pakistan who say that it's been done with the help of establishment, with the help of ISIR, with the international forces. Many people think this thing. So it's a very bad habit in Pakistan that if you are not working according to the wishes of some quarters, they blame you as a traitor, they blame you as that you are not a good person. So people, if you see before election, there were allegations on Jio that they are supporting Imran Khan. PMLN leaders Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif met Jio's TV owners many times, and they said them that you are highlighting Imran Khan too much.
I think we're slightly missing the point here. I mean, in every country there are allegations that the media is supporting this politician or that politician, and it's not objective and impartial and all that. But we're talking about killing of journalists. Journalists being killed. Now, do you feel frightened as a Pakistani journalist if you go to the northwest area and you see something that the military is doing that is wrong and that you might want to write about or film?
Definitely. Not only military, but on the Taliban side as well. If many journalists have been killed by the other side as well. If you can't blame that because we don't have solid evidence, you can't blame army that they are doing it. Again, as Hamad said, that might be third party take the advantage in these cases as well. But because there is the law and order is this provincial subject. If something happening in Punjab, provincial government is responsible. If it's happening in Sindh province, then it's the Sindh government is responsible. Main thing is this, that you have to create a body, or you can say you have to, just like Amnesty International representative said that Prime Minister have promised them to make an effective prosecution against these cases. It's very unfortunate that in Pakistan journalists are not safe. They have to think many times before they write against some groups. And this thing have to be controlled by the government, and they have to make some effective steps to stop these violence against journalists. If a journalist has been killed, it's been highlighted. But there are many journalists who have been under threat, but they are not highlighted. But there are many. If you say that 74 journalists killed in some last 5 or 6 years, there are hundreds of journalists who have been threatened, but no one is able to raise their...
Is there no solidarity among journalists? I mean, why do we have to wait for Amnesty International to produce a report, or the Committee for Freedom of Journalism, in New York, or Reporters Without Borders in Paris? I mean, why aren't Pakistani journalists collectively going to the government and saying we want some action on this?
I mean, before coming to that, the polarization within the journalist community is a fact. But I mean, my own experience tells, I mean, I have covered widely, even including, covering Baloch diaspora from here and different sensitive issues. So, I can confidently say that within, the media, in newspapers and television, there is a lot of self-censorship. There are a lot of stories that reporters file on, sensitive issues, and once these stories go in the paper or are broadcast, then the Ministry of Information and Ministry of Interior exert a lot of pressure on media houses. So already there are many sensitive issues, many areas which are sometimes called national security issues. Media already does not touch those areas. It is in that background that when people like Hamid Mir raise those issues are not liked. And clearly the Ministry of Interior, which is these days applying pressure on the government to shut down Jio and Jang Group, It is through these bodies that the pressure is applied, through Ministry of Information, through different other means and ways.
How could they shut them down? I thought we were told that there is no control over anybody.
No. Well, that is what they are seeking to. They are saying because you have committed treason, you should be shut down. Because
Treason. So they would use the argument of treason.
Yes. They are saying that you have actually, committed treason and you should be shut down. You are anti-Pakistan, you have foreign agenda and all those sorts of allegations without any proof. Yesterday there was a hearing, no proof was presented. There never has been proof. It is so bad that institutions like Ministry of Interior and these PEMRA-like bodies are used for political influences to exert pressure. PEMRA, which is the watchdog right now, it is a dysfunctional body. It does not have a chairman. I mean, it is in a state of disarray. But I mean, now they are talking about this setting up certain lines. There is a clear danger that under the whole current furore that has been created, draconian measures will be brought into to put media in a certain line so that only the official line is told. This should be discouraged. While the media has, clearly a responsibility to report, it obviously should, show responsibility in terms of how it reports it. But there should be no code of conduct in media which actually discourages the investigative reporting.
I mean, are there any journalists in jail? I mean, many countries put journalists in jail. They don't shoot them, which of course is the worst. But are Pakistani journalists at the risk of being sent to jail and arrested on these kind of charges, treason or something else?
That is one area. I mean, if there was Pakistan's rule of law was strong, it would be fine if journalists are put on trial. The issue is that before anything goes to the trial, the danger is that they are killed like attempt was made on Hamid Mir. I mean, 34 journalists killed by both state and non-state actors. Many of journalists from our group, I mean, the Jang and Geo group has the most share of journalists who have been killed. Whether it was in tribal areas or it was attempt on Hamid Mir or Wali Khan Babur and others. So, but from many other groups, I mean, a leading anchor like Raza Rumi, he was attacked, luckily he survived. I mean, his bodyguard died, he survived, he is now living in America. There are many journalists who are under constant threat of violence. Their families are under threat. It happened under...
Can we focus a little bit on the Taliban? I mean, how much of this violence against journalists is being done by the Taliban? Do we have any idea?
I think Taliban are one of the three parties. So you have kind of accusations against intelligence agencies. You have political parties who have militant wings, especially in Karachi. Like, there are two sectarian groups or political groups with militant wings. And then you have this Taliban threat, which is more, like they issue lists of, like anchors and journalists and who are on their hit lists. And so a lot of anchors, top anchors in Pakistan will tell you there, some list or the other came out and their name was on the list. Raza Rumi was.
But what about journalists who are actually in the northwest areas, FATA, and trying to, just report the war? Are they likely to be shot by the Taliban?
It is more likely, obviously, like in Waziristan, where you have military operations happening. As I mentioned, like, if, for example, if you're a journalist, you're writing about the Taliban, so-and-so Taliban leader died or someone died, and you forgot to write, or you didn't write, you don't write martyr in front of his name, and you wrote the soldier who died is a martyr, and so Taliban will be like, we are the martyrs, and why are you referring to soldiers as martyrs? And so that could be a reason for them to say, okay, this journalist is biased and we'll kill him. So that's what I'm saying. It's very difficult for journalists to cover these issues because people will take issue with whatever they say. But I mean, the bigger issue that's come out, I think, like both of my colleagues here also talked about, is that there is no unity in Pakistani journalists, which has become really highlighted after the attack on Hamid Mir. That instead of the story being that someone has been badly injured, this is attack on the media. The story now is that who is a traitor, who isn't, and you can even see some of the anchors are kind of smiling and gleeing. I mean, they'll condemn the attack on Hamid Mir, but you get the feeling they see this as an opportunity to take some of the market share from Geo or others, and this is the kind of makes
there are three red areas in Pakistan. Three red areas in Pakistan where the journalists are on more threats. One is the northwestern areas from Taliban, and you can say the establishment is not responsible. There are many other groups within Taliban. There are criminal elements as well on that side who threats journalists. Other one is Balochistan, where the rebels who are fighting against state, they are also threatening journalists. And the third one is Karachi. I think the most share of journalists have been threatened in Karachi. I know one of
And
my
who's doing that?
Under harassment.
one of the political party, and now there are Taliban elements as well in Karachi. There are, you can say, there are many groups. There are sectarian groups. One of my old friend and my senior who worked for Jio, he's in the top position. He has also been threatened because he belonged to other sect, and the people from other sect, they thought that he's not giving us the proper coverage. So he was also threatened. There are not only the sectarian threats are on rise in Pakistan against journalists. This is a major issue in Pakistan now. It's emerging. Many of our friends who belong to other sects, they have been threatened over there.
Well, this is, I mean, there's also this lack of solidarity among civilians. I mean, you touched on this whole issue of the civilians versus the military. I mean, surely Pakistan needs to control its military. It's run too many coups in the past and so on. I mean, is there any real evidence that since Nawaz Sharif's been in power just over a year, has he really been able to reduce the power of the military?
No. I'll tell you something. You know, no country, whether it is, you know, in South Asia or in the West or anywhere in the world, I mean, you know, the rule of law should be held supreme. No institution, whether it is, as you know, state, any kind of institution should be allowed to operate above the law. Everybody, you know, every institution has to operate within certain limits. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, because of, you know, there's so many dysfunctional governments and, you know, the successive, you know, the interventions of army at many times, and, you know, the democratic government, unfortunately, is not strong. It is because of the weakness of the whole political system in Pakistan that the whole journalism is fractured today. Journalist community is divided today. Journalists don't have protection. I mean, there are different, various groups are running amok in Pakistan.
But I will give points to Nawaz Sharif because
let me finish. I mean, I do not doubt. I mean, Asif Ali Zardari's intentions were good. Nawaz Sharif's intentions are good. He has taken quite good, you know, postures. I mean, he has been abroad because that he opposed that, you know, the whole military intervention. We hope that Nawaz Sharif actually takes a very firm stance on it, establishes the, you know, the rate of the democratic government. But right now, so far as we have seen, it has not happened.
Well, let's get Jawaid's view of that. Do you think he's done anything in
Nawaz
serious?
Sharif have taken the strongest step. He was the first one who went to the hospital and he went to the Hamid Mir.
Yeah,
if you see, it's the bravest step if you say that other forces involved. Prime Minister of Pakistan, who is the head of the government, he went himself and he went to the Hamid Mir in the hospital. What other thing you want to expect from him? There are many things he have to do, but on the other side, if you see, Pakistan have been governed mostly by the military rulers. There are very few civilian governments, and they have been toppled by the military rulers.
Okay, but what, you know, that's a good step to visit the hospital where Hamid Mir is lying. But,
yeah.
but what, more concretely, has he done anything to reduce the power of the military?
No,
Yes, he have done.
Let him answer, please.
Because in the past, if you see, there is only Nawaz Sharif is the civilian ruler who always fight against this military establishment in the past. He have thrown his two previous government by fighting against these military establishment. And again, what's the point? If you see, there were before this incident, there was already hot debate between defense minister and the military establishment. It was going on. So Nawaz Sharif is committed. He was here in London a few days ago, and I met him, and many of journalists met him. I think he was very clear. He very clearly speak for journalist community. He very clearly said that no channel should be shut.
I just want to give Hamid Ali a chance to answer the same question I've asked both of you, and you've answered. But do you think Nawaz Sharif has done anything serious to reduce the power of the military?
I think Nawaz Sharif is, there's a feeling that he's after his own personal vendettas. I mean, obviously he's seen as a politician who's very much against the military. he came to power, he first rose to prominence under a military dictatorship in the 80s. So and in the 90s when he was in power, he didn't have a very good record on press freedom. And he was criticized for that by international press organizations. So if he is supporting the journalist community right now, press freedom, it's more as a tool, maybe perhaps, to be seen as taking on the military rather than a genuine commitment to press freedom. I mean, the cat was let
But if he is taking on the military, that's a step forward, isn't it? Whatever his motives, if he is actually taking on the military and trying to reduce their power, isn't that to be supported?
I think there's a difference between, let's say, reducing powers, reducing the threat of military coups again in the future, and then something else, which is like a kind of war between different, like the civilian government, between the judiciary, between the military, which just creates even more problems. And I feel like Nawaz Sharif is more on that kind of footing with the military rather than, genuinely seeking a kind of a middle road which Pakistan reached. Right? Because if you look in Pakistan, if you look at polls, like military always comes at 80% approval rating. People don't want to have living under dictatorships, but they prefer military as in its role as a military, which is protecting the borders and whatever. And people like Nawaz Sharif and others are seen as these corrupt politicians and whatever. So he's seen to be just challenging the military in a way that's going to create more instability rather than in the way you're trying to.
Okay, well we've come to the end of our time, I'm afraid. On that note about Nawaz Sharif, we'll have to end this discussion. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other opportunities to come back to Pakistan in the coming weeks. So I'd just like to thank my guests and of course you at home for watching. Don't forget that you can keep up with the discussion by following us on both Twitter and Facebook. So until next time, thank you and thank you. Goodbye.